So, the purpose of this video is to sort of like address some of the issues that have been circling around YouTube and the internet, Reddit, etc., regarding some failures or some malfunctions that have been occurring with this Canik Rival S. Now, I want to start off by saying for the money that you pay, this is one hell of a firearm. Um, it's by far, it punches way above its weight class. Um, what what seems to be some of the rumors that are going around, it's Turkish. Um, it's not as good as the TTI Combat, um, and so on. To me, by far, this pistol um, is well worth the price you pay. And in terms of malfunctions and the issues that are circling the internet right now, um, my story is one that you can either take with a grain of salt, or you can uh, pay close attention and try to do what I did to remedy some of my issues. I want to start off by saying, um, when I first purchased the firearm about 7 months ago, actually, yeah, about 7 months ago, um, I realized um, how 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 flat shooting this pistol really is. Now, granted, we all know it's steel frame. It's 5.5 inch barrel. We all know it's a full size pistol. It's got a lot of heft to it. Um, you couple that with the Showfire X300 turbo, and you got yourself a heavy firearm. This right here is it's an 18 rounder with the +3 or +4, whatever this is, extension. So you get a lot of rounds in here. You get 20 something rounds. So at full weight, you're looking at almost, I don't know, over 40 ounces. So the first mag that I shot through this firearm, of course, was flawless, no issues whatsoever. And I think the the couple of other mags that I fired afterwards were also uh, flawless, zero malfunctions. At the time, I was using 115 grain MagTech. Um, so, after a few range visits, and I have other pistols, I would go to the range once a week, maybe sometimes twice, and I would put, I don't know, about three magazines through each gun. Um, so as time went on and a few months passed and zero malfunctions, I started experimenting with different grains and different manufacturers in terms of ammunition. So when I saw that the MagTech uh, 115 grain steel cased ammo was on sale, I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to try that. It's a whole dollar cheaper than the other MagTech, which was the brass one, 115 grain. So, I tried it. I loaded a mag full, and about midway through the mag, I got a failure to eject. Now, the round was the spent casing made it about halfway out of the barrel, while the other round from the magazine tried to make its way up underneath the spent casing, which was still midway through the barrel exit. So that resulted in a failure to eject, I guess, and a failure to feed because of that eject malfunction. And it was with the steel cased ammo. Now, I'm not too sure if it was the steel cased ammo that resulted in a malfunction. Because in hindsight, yes, I had put some brass casings, 115 grain Magtech through it without any issues. Now, mind you, I should mention that anytime I purchase a pistol, I do not clean it and lube it. Why is that? I don't know. That's just not what I do. I mean, the gun should be free of debris, and the only thing that should be uh, all over the slide and the contact point should be some of that anti-seize bronze or maybe some factory lube, which is indeed lube, right? And some guys on the internet say, you're supposed to clean it, blah, blah, blah. I don't. It's just not what I do. I clean my guns after usage. Now, that being said, when I fired a few of those magazines and then I attempted the steel cased ammo, I got that malfunction. I assumed that maybe it was the steel cased ammo. So what I did was I immediately stopped using it just in case, because they say, steel cased ammo is not good for the ejector and could cause several other issues. So I said, all right, you know what, let me not play around. Let me go back to the 115 grain brass case that I was shooting in the past. So I switched out the mag and I reinstalled, uh, and I reloaded the 115 brass, and the gun fired flawlessly again. Now, fast forward a few months, and I was going back to the range, and I tried some other 115 grain. I believe it was a manufacturer that I picked up at a gun show, manufacturer of 115 ammunition, which was called, I believe, HSL. And I tried that, and I got the same malfunction, which was a failure to eject, partially stuck case with a live round in the magazine ready to be inserted into battery, but couldn't because it was jammed underneath the spent casing. So no problem. I cleared the malfunction, and I attempted it again, maybe thinking it was maybe a round or ammo related. And after a few shots, same issue. So I reached into my bag and I swapped out the 115 grain with some 124 Federal, I believe. And after about a few rounds, I got the same malfunction again. So the same malfunction with two different types of grains and two different types of manufacturers. Now, okay, so I figured, okay, this is concerning because I guess I had only put maybe about 300 or 400 rounds through the gun. So I said, okay, let me see what I do. So I got home and I researched some stuff on the internet. And it turns out I came across a Reddit post that stated that underneath, or I should say, somewhere in the ejector, which is probably like right here, there was some crud buildup. So I couldn't really see it. According to the user on Reddit, he said he had a lot of crud buildup and it resulted in a similar malfunction. So I couldn't really tell because I don't know, my eyesight is either getting bad or I just needed uh, 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 somewhere to analyze it a little bit more closely. So I pulled out my magnifying glass and I used a bright light, and lo and behold, there was crud buildup inside of the ejector, which was, I guess, resulting in the round or the casing, the end of the casing, not being grabbed or hooked properly in order for it to properly eject the casing and for the magazine to do its job and force the next round into battery. So I took some Hoppies cleaner and a brush, and I took to it and brushed it all out real good, and lo and behold, it looked different than what I saw when I had it in a magnifying glass. It looked like it was clear. You can actually see the hook um, a lot clearer. And I went back to the range, and it fired flawlessly. It fired both rounds flawlessly. So now, a couple of magazines in, blah blah blah. Next range session, I got the same malfunction. So now I said to myself, okay, what could be the issue? Because I'm assuming that wasn't enough rounds for it to become cruddy or dirt buildup or debris to form on that ejector hook or extractor hook, I should say. So I looked, and lo and behold, the extractor hook was clean. So no problem. I sprayed it down again, and I went back to the range a week later, and I got the same malfunction. Like every other magazine, I would get maybe 2 or 3 double feeds or failure to eject, failure to feed. So now I go back home and I jump on the internet and I start looking. It turns out that malfunction is pretty common when it comes to these Canics. But I saw guys saying that some springs and some extractor springs and so on, recoil spring assembly had to be changed out, and that would clear up the issue. So I said to myself, you know what? It doesn't hurt. Those springs are pretty cheap. I put in an order for an extractor spring, and I believe I put in an order for a recoil spring assembly. So I said to myself, okay, while I'm waiting for that stuff to come in, I'm gonna field strip the gun entirely and clean it thoroughly and lube it thoroughly. So I was able to do that, and I put it back together. I assembled it. I got ready to go back to the range. I took 2 different types of ammo with me, and I loaded up the 115 grain. They say to only use 124. Actually, no, I loaded the 124 first because I saw online that they said to use 124 NATO spec ammunition. At the time I had 124 Federal, so that's what I had. I loaded up the magazine and boom, 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 flawlessly. It shot flawlessly. I said, okay, maybe I got lucky. So now I loaded up the magazine again, 124 grain. So that's about 40 something rounds of 124 Federal. So I went boom, 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 boom. Everything was perfect. I don't know if maybe, I made sure that once I cleaned it thoroughly that I would grip it really good, make sure I wasn't limp wristing, make sure everything was just perfect. I try to duplicate the malfunction, but to no avail. Then I said, okay, I'm going to try the 115 grain now to see, if maybe that would yield another malfunction. So I loaded the magazine up with 21 rounds and boom, 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 boom. Perfect. Flawless. It ran flawlessly. I said, okay. I have to be sure. So now I loaded another magazine with 115 grain, held on to it for dear life, and shot down the range again, emptied out the mag flawlessly. Now the springs come in, and I'm sitting there thinking, should I swap them? The gun is firing. Let me see what happens if I run it again a few times, if I can duplicate the malfunction. So now I go back to the range, and I said, okay, I'm going to put rounds through this baby. So go there. I load up 124. Bam, 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 bam. Goes perfect, not a problem. I load 115. One hand, I start shooting to see if anything happens. Bump, 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 bump. No issues whatsoever. So now, I can honestly say that maybe the firearm had some. Oh, very important, very important. What I did realize when I stripped the entire slide was that this extractor, as dry as it looked on the outside, when I was able to pop it off, it was doused in oil. It was doused in oil, and I am assuming that maybe under high, pressure situations or tension or whatever you want to call it, when it was time to grab the round, the oil that was somewhere back here, which got in the port, the little area where the spring sits, I'm assuming that maybe under all that pressure, the extractor was slipping due to the amount of oil that was underneath here. So when it was time to grab onto the case, it would literally slip off. I don't know if it was because of the hook was oily, or maybe it's oily in here, and that was causing some sort of it was causing it not to grip the ending of the case correctly, for it to extract the round, the spent case, and then load a new round into battery. So yeah, I did. So what I did was I did clean all of this stuff out. I took out all the springs, and I hosed everything down with some Fallout cleaner, this cleaner right here, and afterwards I dried it up with a towel, and then I took my little trusty air gun, and I was able to dry everything, and I then put everything back together, and I went back to the range, and that's when it ran again flawlessly with no issues. So for those of you thinking of changing those springs, I suggest you do everything that I did in order to first diagnose to see if you do have an issue, because I was ready to jump the gun and change the springs out. And I don't want to do that if the gun is running perfectly. I'd rather wait to see what happens after a few more rounds to see if I could duplicate the malfunction. If not, I'm going to keep this way. Maybe do a lighter spring, a lighter recoil spring, and maybe some trigger work. But this trigger is so good, I don't want to touch it. It's kind of like my PDP match. It's so good and so perfect. Why mess with it? But yeah, so that's my story with the Canik Rival S. It's one hell of a firearm. I got it for $900 with the optic in January of 2025. I threw on a Surefire for some added weight. I'm looking for a holster. And I tell you, by far, one of the flattest shooting pistols I've ever shot. It definitely punches way above its weight class. So yeah, that's my story with the Canik Rival S. Thank you. Like and subscribe, and enjoy your shooting range days.